Cybersecurity is about more than just technology. It's about how people behave with emails, data, and cloud applications that directly impacts your company's security posture. Security works best when it's ingrained in the culture of your organization. To learn how to build a security culture and transform your employees from targets into a strong line of defense, head to securityweekly.com/proofpoint and visit their Cybersecurity Awareness Center. The hybrid workforce is here to stay, and it requires real-time visibility, control, and rapid response of every endpoint, whether it's in the office or home. Tanium offers an endpoint management and security platform built for the most demanding IT environments. Many of the world's largest and most sophisticated organizations, including nearly half of the Fortune 100, rely on Tanium to deliver unmatched endpoint visibility and control. Whether you're preparing for zero trust or protecting your network from supply chain risk, Tanium empowers technology leaders to achieve greater agility, efficiency, and confidence. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Tanium.
Sorry, I muted for a burp earlier. It was worth that bit of silence, trust me. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Join us for our next live webcast tomorrow, October 21st, to learn why zero-knowledge encryption matters. Then join us November 4th to learn about pragmatic steps to reduce your software supply chain risk. Finally, join us November 11th to learn the key insights and takeaways from the 2021 OWASP Top 10. They finally updated it again. It was like 3 or 4 years. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast to save yourself a seat. Don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts. They don't go away once we finish them. They stay there for your viewing pleasure forever. And technical trainings at securityweekly.com/on-demand. Also, you can find more details on the news items that we're going to talk about today in the show notes. Go to securityweekly.com/ESW 247 for all of today's news details and links. I spent a lot of time putting my thoughts in there, links to different things that we're going to talk about. So worth checking that out if you're interested in any of these topics we're gonna go through. All right, today we've got a bit more limited time because the next segment is going to be a little bit longer. We want to stay on target today, time-wise. But as usual, I want to start with the funding. And the first one's an interesting one. Google Cloud investing $50 million in security startup Cybereason, but it's not really a funding round. They're describing it as an extension to the Series F, which was like $250 million, huge Series F. But Google Cloud isn't a VC. They're not a PE firm. So I don't think this is for any ownership of the company. This is described as a strategic partnership.
Yeah,
quite a partnership when it comes with $50 million.
Yeah, it's interesting. We see these quite frequently, but almost never at a $50 million number. That's what makes this really interesting and really unique is the sheer size of it. But, if you think of 50 million, what did you say, Adrian, 250 in the F?
Something like that. Total funding is $717 million.
Wow.
All the funding together. And the valuation, nobody really knows, but they're spitballing like around $3 billion.
Yeah, so typically you see these strategic ones earlier because essentially it turns into a way that they don't always come with a right of first refusal, although sometimes they do.
Right.
But you can, and that's much to your down payment comment in the show notes here. But usually, if you just think of the sheer numbers, 50 million on 250 is 20%. So usually you see it earlier on, say, a 20 million or 30 million or even a $50 million round. And the number seems much more palatable, but it's still percentage-wise a similar percent, right? So it just happens to be a later stage version of making sure I get a piece of the pie kind of play.
Yeah, it's really interested. Once companies have raised this much funding, the number of exit opportunities dwindle, right?
Yeah, as we move into next year and the year after, and hopefully we're all still doing these news segments together, we start talking about some of these massive exits that have to come on the back of these, or the massive failures that have to come on the back of these. It's going to be one or the other.
Yeah. So the next one, Black Kite, another one of these security. So they compete with Security Scorecard. I think is the one that describes what the market is in the name. Is what I tend to refer to the market as. But the official name a lot of people use is Security Rating Services, or SRS, which reminds me of seatbelts and supplemental restraint systems. Which, I guess that can be kind of an analogy there. Like, that's what they're supposed to be. But it's an interesting market. On the lab side, we're going to take a look at it. And I'm kind of interested, too, because it's very contentious. A lot of folks, kind of describe it as a necessary evil because there is a score. Your company's given a score. And if it's wrong, you want to fix it. But, other people love to hate companies in this market.
Yeah, I like your quote here on the general sales model described as they gave us a bad grade due to false positives and we were forced to work with them. Very interesting model.
Yeah, it is. And so oftentimes you see companies working with 3 of them at once because they all have these different ratings and they use similar methods. So when one has a false positive, several of them do. So yeah, if you've got an F or a low credit score or whatever their scale is, each of them has some kind of process that you have to work through. And I suspect paying customers to process is easier than non-paying. I don't know. That's one of the things we'll probably explore if we test out this, or when we test out this category.
So yeah, and I do wonder if you get nailed with 2, 3, 4 of them at once, all showing you as a failure, as having bad results. That's maybe one of those moments where, if you've had 2, 3, 4 girlfriends all dump you, it's probably you. So you may want to.
or they're all using the same vulnerability scanner.
Yeah. I mean, Adrian, I think it would definitely see companies wanting to use this type of validation more and more with supply chain attacks. And so it's interesting timing for Black Kite in my mind that this is definitely becoming a bigger part of the purchasing behavior of companies is to understand what is the security risk we're maybe taking.
Yeah, we need this to work, some form of this. I don't know what the final form of this market is, but the current form, I'm not hearing great things about.
And the market's been around a while. It's been interesting.
As long as it doesn't end up, emulating the human credit scoring market, right? Which we all know is a total sham, but that feels like where it's closest to going.
Yeah, and cyber insurance right next to it.
Yep, they're all dancing in the same pool for sure.
Yeah, good point, Tyler.
Dancing in the pool, or are they doing something else in the pool?
Circling the drain? Which one? I don't know. Yeah.
I was going to say peeing in the pool.
Yeah.
I always dance in the pool. It's the most fun I have on Wednesday afternoons.
It's it's a safer place to dance when you start getting old, like us. Less likely to break a hip.
Jeez.
All right. Okay.
Sorry. Your yellow lighting, we just got to pick on you today.
I'm jaundiced, as we mentioned earlier. I'm jaundiced. That's what happens when you get old.
Yep. So some other interesting, like the rest of the fundings here are all kind of new, or at least they're claiming to be new categories. So Query.AI is talking about, it sounds like they're pitching themselves as a SOAR alternative, and making XDR and SOAR easier. It's something we'd definitely have to dig into deeper to find out more, but they certainly have that integration page that scrolls forever and has like 400 integrations and plugins with different products.
Yeah, I wonder if this is could be similar to some of the new cyber asset stuff that JupiterOne, Exonius are doing too. I haven't dug into Query.AI, but I'm wondering if it's a similar model.
Yeah. But, one thing I'm noticing with a lot of new companies now is it's almost required to acknowledge the alert fatigue issue and the fact that a lot of these products require a lot of dev work. You need some folks with some Python skills to make them work. And even with those folks, I still hear people being frustrated with a lot of SOAR products and XDR products. But so we're seeing that more and more. It's like this, but easier. on your analyst, or easier on your SOC, less footwork.
Back to our previous conversation, since it is SOC Analyst Week, back to our previous conversation of, how do we elevate, we elevate the SOC analyst, we elevate the human beings with automation. And that's where a lot of these tools are trying to get to, but they're just early in market.
Yeah. And speaking of early market, we've got two. Let's see. So Valence is another interesting new one. Wild Ventures has had a lot of, maybe not. They've had a few home runs, but a lot of really solid, base hits. And so we always kind of perk up when they've got something new here. And they're calling it business application mesh. So security for, not in the traditional API security sense, but they also mention if this then that style enterprise workflow automation services like Zapier and Workato, which Workato I noticed the other day is now embedded within Cycognito, which is kind of interesting. Seeing some of these enterprise workflow automation tools integrated into a security SaaS product.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like the more heavily you rely on Zapier and Workato style things, the more you should just be writing a custom app for your enterprise workflow rather than trying to stitch all that stuff together. But I get it. It does have its place in the enterprise. And I think the security is really interesting of those, particular applications.
RPA too, right? I mean, RPA is a big movement. How do you start to, if you're automating more and more? I was talking to a CISO a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how exactly that as RPA comes more and more in, you have to, those interactions tend to dominate a lot of the data that's moving around your environment. Mm-hmm. How do you secure it?
And all that's just kind of skirting around rewriting a legacy app. So you'd use RPA because you can't rewrite, so you make it point and click and do stuff in the app is the way I understand it. And because it's a lot of development time you're going to spend either implementing something new or rewriting an entire legacy app.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I these are for the folks who are like, yeah, but we don't have anybody that can write an app.
Yeah.
So that they're going to try this out, see if this solves the problem for them. But I imagine some of this is kind of like when you saw containers come out. One of the needs was who's going to tell me if this container is safe or not, or if it has a backdoor. So there's a need for some kind of rating system, like risk ranking system for all these custom plugins and stuff like that. Like even Zoom has apps now that you can plug into it, like a whole app store for Zoom within Zoom.
Yeah, which is a little scary.
Yeah,
just in terms of what Zoom has access to, and it's an interesting. And we know they had some security issues beginning, but yeah,
unexplored attack surface constantly popping up. So next one, Tenchi Security is some Brazilian friends of mine. So very cool to see them raise a seed round. Not a whole lot of details on what they're building, but it sounds like a SaaS cloud security platform focusing on visibility of your own maturity and third parties that you're using within that service. So just seed funding, not a lot of details yet, but Alexandre Sierra and Philippe Bouchas, I think I'm saying that right, were both part of Nadell, along with Alex Pinto, which got sold to Verizon. And they were both at Verizon for a while, and now they've split off and started Tenchi. And Tenacity sounds a little similar. It's also cloud security, but focused on small businesses. So it's meant to be cloud security SaaS that's entirely self-service. For companies, small businesses that have no IT, much less any security hires or folks.
That's going to be interesting as they bridge the gap into kind of that down market. It's going to be neat to see the difference between like a full-fledged enterprise project versus what they're building, because I'm going to guess they have to have some kind of managed portfolio component to that. Yeah. It's got to be semi-managed.
That's an interesting. You're seeing more and more security demands move down market for sure, and I think as we've been talking about all day, I think you have to have a lot of expertise and technology. And how do you do that when someone's really just getting IT going, as you're saying, Adrian? So it's a fascinating area for sure. That how do you mix in the people, the expertise, as well as the technology is not easy.
Yeah, I think almost everybody at this end of the market these days tends to have, like an on-demand professional services, IT services company doing stuff for them. So I imagine products like these, sales-wise, they're going to go after those organizations, because then they'll onboard a couple hundred small businesses at a time through that provider.
Yep.
That MSSP.
Yeah, it'll be a full channel. It'll either be a channel play like you're describing, or a true bottoms-up product-led play where individuals that have a little bit of knowledge can come in and self-sign up. But most of it's going to have to be either managed by them directly or through managed channels.
So a few acquisitions here. I want to hurry through here so we get to talk about all these. HelpSystems acquires PhishLabs. A lot of people haven't heard of HelpSystems. They've been gobbling up security companies like crazy. I'm not going to go through them all here, but picked up, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe a dozen in the last 3 years now.
Yeah, not all security related. Back to your RPA example. I think actually that's where I learned about some of the robotic process automation was from the folks at HelpSystems, because they acquired a company in that space, I believe.
Yeah, so they've always been robotic automation since like the early 80s. They are the largest I-Series or AS400 independent software shop in the world. Apparently.
It's amazing. When I was first learning Linux and Unix, we had gotten an AS400.
Wow.
And it was amazing to see what that could do versus like the Windows, equivalents or some of the smaller Linux stuff at the time. I was pretty amazed.
So yeah, interested to see if maybe they, so they're private equity owned. So I'm interested to see if HelpSystems would be. I think an IPO would make sense for them.
It's tough to predict. Depends on how well they can integrate all that stuff and keep momentum going.
Yeah. Elastic and Optimyze. So Elastic's another company building out their security side of things. They picked up Endgame, Command, Build.Security, and now Optimyze, which is Halvar Flake's latest company. Optimyze isn't really a security company, but certainly is kind of like a profiling stuff in workloads in production is their thing. So definitely has some security use cases, I think. So interesting to see Elastic building things out as well.
That's one hell of a combination lineup they got there too. CMD, Build, Security, Endgame, all in one place. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And this is a must-read from Phil Venables. Not going to go into it too deep, but basically he's identified 10 things, 10 data points that to him indicate a mature, good cybersecurity program in a company, and not a whole lot of them correlate with the stuff that the security rating scorecard services collect. Just pointing that out.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first accountable executive is the first one on the list, which is kind of interesting. How do you measure that? Is there a compliance checkbox for that?
Well, it was go ahead, Adrian. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, we're running out of time. Wanted to mention CrowdStrike created a new standard for XDR. I did embed the obligatory XKCD. The comic is number 927. You've all read it. There's 14 standards. This is the 15th. Mm-hmm. And then there's some interesting tools here, Paul. I thought you'd be interested in a few of these. One of them is a web-based reporting tool, pen test reporting tool. Writes a lot of your pen test report for you, written in Python. Looks pretty decent. I haven't tried it yet.
Saving that one.
And then I've never heard of Istio before, but there is now a dedicated security scanner for it, and it's called Snowcat. And then
it's kind of a fundamental service mesh technology that you build your service meshes on top of. It's actually really, really cool tech. So the fact that they're doing a security layer on top of it is interesting. There was a company called Cytail that Sunil James tried to build too, that got acquired by HP. Does some of that stuff, but if this one's open source, which I think it is,
it's open source.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
Yeah, all these are open source. All the tools on my list here, and Praetorian Labs has built a lot of cool stuff over the years. So, sure, it's pretty solid. And then the last open source tool here is called KDigger, and context discovery tool for Kubernetes. And I imagine this will be in a lot of pen testers' tool set when they go out and they do cloud first, cloud heavy type organizations. And with that, our Squirrel for today, we don't have a ton of time, so I just chose an image, and we're going to throw up that image as I
it's a good one. I like it.
Read us out into the next segment here.
That's fantastic. Only one ether.
It really lands, right? Because they chose the one character in all fantasy literature that really does need the physical object to feel like they own it. Yeah. Right. I think it really nails, why people kind of scratch their head when somebody tries to explain NFTs to them. So stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk about insights from interviewing ransomware crews with Adam Janofsky, the founding editor of The Record, a news publication funded by Recorded Future. Really, really great interview. I highly recommend sticking around and checking that out.